So we're going to be talking about the cycle of deprivation today. I guess the question is, in society today where so many people, particularly young people, are not fulfilling their potential, whose responsibility is that? And how do we get to a place where people are actually being all they can be?
I think it's our responsibility as people, to be honest, to break that cycle. To be honest, you can support two people in the same situation. And the approach to the situation, how they deal with it, how they see it, will determine who gets away. For example, I can see something, and I can see that there's a great light in the tunnel. You might see, you can see a brick wall. So it's about how you program your mind to change that situation you're in and break that cycle.
The mindset.
Yeah.
I think a large part of that, on top of only the mindset, is as well the sort of environment that we live in, and the sort of environment that the government allows us to breathe, so to speak. I think a large part of what's happened is since the 80s, we've just been put into an environment where it's an argument between those who have and those who don't. And I think the problem with those who have is they always know how to keep it. And the problem with those who don't is a lot of the times they don't know how to go and get that. So I think although we do have a role to play in trying to break that, I think a large part of it is having a network that exists around that allows us to go on to thrive and do that.
It's interesting.
Well, I think it's both parts, to be honest with you. It's within yourself as well, and it's the government has a part to play as well, because I was brought up in a deprived area, and I was brought up and my family was not so wealthy living, and I had to grow myself out of where I was living to be in a well-fed place. Like, the government has the reason why I say government has a part to play, because the government is a business. They make money off us. Yeah, we all have price tags. In prison, everyone's a price tag to them. So they need crime. They need us to do crime. They need us to rob each other. They need us to kill each other. And that's why I feel like they put us into secluded areas where we live off each other, see what one person's doing, and we want that. The jealousy gets created and stuff like that. So, and I've seen that all. Growing up in an estate, seeing people get shot, seeing people get stabbed, seeing myself get stabbed. I've been shot at, gun put to my head, all them kind of things. And it makes you think, like, do you really want to be part of this circle no more? And if you stand out and if you speak out, you're seen as a crazy person. Then the government puts a big cross over you, and they make you feel like you're a bad person. And then when you try to achieve, they stop you from achieving. And I feel like the government has a big part to play.
Just stop here. I don't think that you can say the government to a certain extent, but I don't think it's enough to blame the government. I think that like I said before, you have to look at your situation. Like someone famous, Ben Carson, famous neurosurgeon. I think he's the first person to successfully split the Siamese twins, and he said that successful people don't have less problems. They're just more determined to make sure the problem doesn't stop them from going forward. So if you're brought up in a deprived area, if you're brought up in somewhere that isn't seen as too great or too nice, sometimes that's where the best people are found of. So from rough stone, from rough, that's how you make gold.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you chip it off, you find the gold from the rough dust.
With the government, I don't know, I always get a bit skeptical when people say government, because we, society today, we spend about £80 billion on education. We have a budget of just over £700 billion a year. For me, that's enough money to spend on a population of only 60 million people.
But is it being spent?
Well, I guess this is the question, because it's very easy to say money is the answer, but where would you spend money that it isn't being spent right now?
But I think there's enough out there for, like, you live in a place like Great Britain. It's one of the most successful nations in the world. It's one of the most, like, GDP, I was looking at the other day, compared to someone like Nigeria, you think Nigeria has a lot of money, but millions more than Nigeria. Unless people.
But the thing is, it's still a country that has that divide between the rich and the poor. And
I
think that is the largest problem, is that, okay, we have X amount to go and teach people and educate people, but are they actually being educated?
Is this divide as big as a country like Nigeria or Bangladesh?
I think not.
And number two, we are probably second or third generation young people, right? All of you are doing particularly well in your lives, but your parents came or their parents came, and then you are expected to progress from there.
Yeah.
So if we look at that from when our parents came to where we are today, are we really saying that we're not making a lot of progress as ethnic minorities or people from low socioeconomic backgrounds?
We are, but you gotta understand, yeah, when we start school, from day one, we've been taught that we're gonna fail.
I don't think we have.
No, we have. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you grew up around a rich area, around posh schools, are you more likely to do crime?
No, I agree with you.
But if you're brought up in a deprived area
with
broken down houses, are you more likely to do crime?
See, but the thing about crime though, is that actually you do tend to find that a lot of crime is done with children from affluent areas as well. But I think the problem is the type of crime. That's first thing, and secondly, how the crime is being treated. Because I think if you catch person from working class doing a crime and someone from maybe a wealthy class doing a crime, the circumstances are different, and what happens ends up being different.
Judges and magistrates, do you think that they have some kind of bias as well? If they look at a rich kid who's
I think everybody has biases. I think even the institutions that we all aspire to work for are biased. And it's from a social perspective, a cultural one too, and that's why I think in terms of breaking it all, I think the key answer is in ownership. And I think if we're talking about people from the deprived areas or ethnic classes or whatever, it's about owning it. And I think the key to it is if we start to own our things, then we can also hire our people.
What do you think about? Or any of you three? What do you think about people moving out? So, for example, if your parents when they first came, I don't know, Nigerian. Peckham has the largest Nigerian population in the UK. So, if your mum and dad, settled in Peckham, what do you think about you now moving out? Once you've become socially mobile.
See, I would be against that simply because I feel like we live. I mean, we're all from backgrounds where we understand the idea where we understand the idea of being raised by people who just aren't our parents. And I feel like in the UK, especially as black people, we've lost that. In Africa, it's something that we knew everybody is uncle and auntie, but we come here and we can't respect the fellow black person on the bus, for example. So I think a lot of that is actually staying in Peckham or staying in Brixton or staying in Norwood and showing these children, look, I'm an accountant, but I live here. Do you understand? And I think a lot of that is...
I think bringing it home, talking about the cycle of deprivation and how do you break that cycle, I think you have to bring it back to yourself. There's three things I like to see and look at in terms of that. You need to have vision, purpose and creativity. If you don't have vision, how can you see where you're going to? You don't know where left and right is. How can you say you're going to come at that cycle?
Who should teach you that?
Who should teach you that?
Whose responsibility is that?
I think first and foremost, obviously everything starts from home. Your parents, like the example that they set, the way you look at them, that's the first and foremost. Obviously, then society has a part to play, but then you have to start from home. So the parents have a big impact on you, or where they send you to school, what clubs they send you to, or whatever.
Hold on, but what if you brought up with no parents? And so you have to look at society, but you live in a deprived area.
If you're brought with no parents, there's a lot of people that brought no parents are still successful.
How do you help a young person who lives in a deprived area and has no hope?
How do you help them?
I think
education is the answer.
A role model is...
But education doesn't really help.
A role model can replace a parent.
Education don't teach you about your taxes. Education
don't teach
Education don't teach you about motherland. Does it teach you about motherland, or does it teach you about Henry VIII?
I don't think. But what's I understand what you're saying, but you have to. The question you need to ask yourself is, what is the key of education? Education, because like you can study Henry VIII, but Henry VIII won't be used in a job. Do you understand? I think because they can teach you about anything, but I think the key of education is teaching you how to learn and how to think. And I think, regardless of what you study, once you learn to think and once you learn to analyse the world that you live in, then you can be whatever you want to be. I mean, look all the success stories that we have of people from working class areas who've succeeded. We look at a lot of other classes, and we look at, for example,
maybe someone successful that hasn't had education.
Someone successful.
Someone who hasn't had education. I personally can't tell you a lot of people.
We'll move on.
The thing is, the reason I can't name a lot of people who haven't had education simply because I'm a big advocate of education. So I believe that it's very, very important. Like we all need to be educated.
Should communities be able to run schools then? Should you be able to say, look, I don't like the way the school's being run in my local area, so
that's the thing. Everyone's so quick to complain and say this, that we should do. Government should do this, that should do that. But really and truly, are you gonna do it yourself? Like,
Yeah.
what
You would run a school. Would you run a school?
Why not?
Okay,
You know you
fair enough.
can run a school.
So
now.
Tell me
fair
why
enough.
not. Tell me why I can't do that.
I think you can. You know you can.
Fair enough.
You know you
So,
can.
I want to
You're
say something to you.
gonna set
I
the
agree with you.
curriculum for
Education.
everyone.
I think education is important. I ain't gonna lie. I agree with you. But education that's relevant to the youth, education that's relevant to today's
So
society.
what do you think?
But what's going on? What's happened like 20 years, 50 years ago? Ain't really gonna matter to us,
Oh,
is it?
so I think.
But hold on.
For example, if you're talking about society and how we're made up and how we're socially constructed, obviously you're gonna have to learn about how you end up here. You have to learn about the Windrush. If you're from Bangladesh, you have to learn about how people from Bangladesh, how they came over from Nigeria, etc., etc. Also, you won't even know why you fit where you fit and how you can progress.
That's history, right?
Yeah.
But I'm talking about what's the core main three subjects? What's the
Maths,
core
English,
subject?
and science, and they're the three most important ones. Full stop.
Alright.
Irrespectively, math, the way maths teaches
Even
you to
science?
think is so useful in society. If we look at the people who run the world now, all of them are from STEM.
Yeah.
Which means they've all studied something that's quantitative, and numbers don't lie. And I think it's like
I mean, history
you can't argue against
is
that.
just as important.
Yeah, I agree. History is just as important.
So how do you think that we can break that cycle of deprivation?
I think
That's the
ownership.
main.
I think definitely ownership, taking ownership of everything and having assets and being able to
So you
control
think,
what we own.
so you think yourself most important?
I think as a people we need to own stuff, not just
Yeah,
individuals.
not
I think
individual,
as a
yeah,
people,
exactly.
we need
And
to,
not-
we need to come together, 100 of
I
us,
think,
and open them
I
all.
think the first step is to stop the blaming game
Yeah.
and look around ourselves more,
I agree.
and then look into that and see how we can change that.
There we
So,
go.
for example, I can give you Kevin Durant, well-known basketballer. For example, just won the MVP last year. Had a very touching speech. Watching myself, I was emotional as well. But yeah, he was talking about how from when he was young, how his mum used to push him to do stuff. Sometimes he wouldn't want to do it. His mum would wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, take him on runs. His mum would make him go basketball training, etc. And now he's got his mum to thank for all that. So I'm saying that if you bring it home and if you look like into your circle more, into people that are close to you, then you're more likely to break that cycle.
Yeah, I agree. And I think parents are very important, but I also agree that sometimes parents are not going to know just what to do or how to do it. So, you know, as well as parents, your wider community is equally as important to me. I think to reduce the cycle of deprivation, everybody has a part to play. Governments have a part to play on how they're spending their money, what they're spending the money on. They need to be very accountable to those who vote and pay their taxes. I think parents obviously have a huge responsibility in teaching their children early on and how to push on, but ultimately everybody in society, whether it's your neighbour, your cousin, just a friend that you see on the street, has a responsibility for making sure that we can end the cycle of deprivation, because only then we'll be able to move on as a community.
I think the answers lay in our future of ownership, and I think as people we need to be able to raise awareness and be sure that we understand the importance of owning stuff and being able to be in control of our future and our destiny. And I think irrespective of what the government cannot or aren't able to do, we need to be able to learn and earn and then be able to come back as people to pay that back and pay that to our children and our youth who are going to be our future, really.
Right, so how do we break the cycle of deprivation? I think we need to stop playing the blame game and look into ourselves. I think we, as an individual, have more of a say in our future, and we should stop blaming the government. I think we need to look into 3 major things: our vision, our purpose, and creativity. Vision, to see where we're going; purpose, to know where we're heading to; and creativity, to make our decisions and the steps we take different to other people, like what Bilal said. So I think that us as an individual have the biggest say in our futures and our lives.
I feel to break the cycle of deprivation, I feel we as a community need to get together, unite, and be the voice that needs to be heard. Because I feel like we're all scared to speak up the truth. I feel like we are scared to be different, and the government doesn't help because they want to look good. Like during the Olympics in Stratford, they made a lot of people homeless that people don't know about, made homeless because they wanted to look good. So they chucked out a lot of deprived people from Stratford and housed them elsewhere far from Stratford just so they could look good for the Olympics. Yeah, so we need to educate ourselves, like someone said earlier, but we need to also wake up, speak up as well, and together we're stronger. I run a campaign called 1 Minute in May. It's a campaign against youth violence all over the UK. I'm getting all mothers on board, all fathers on board, brothers and sisters, boyfriends and girlfriends who have suffered their lost ones to gun and knife violence. My aim is to get all the Premiership and Championship clubs to do a minute silence for my campaign this season. I'm also getting musicians to support my campaign, and also what we're going to be doing within the next 2 years, have in the Euro 2016 to do a minute silence for my campaign. In a year and a half time, I'm opening my own library in East London, and hopefully branch it out to every borough where we educate young people about things that we don't get taught in school. So please support me.
There's too much of a gap between the rich and the poor. So if you tax the rich people more, give more benefits to the poor, that's going to make people better off. But if you give the poor too many benefits, they're not going to work because they're just going to be living off benefits, if you know what I mean. For young people, it's more about going out and finding jobs, because if the economy is in a good state, there's always going to be jobs for people. So jobs depending on how well the economy is doing. And how well the economy is doing is depending on the rich people, basically. So it really depends on the state of the economy for jobs. And if there are always going to be jobs out there, so it's all about looking out and finding the jobs for themselves.